Hey, hey, hey! Welcome everybody to Rocket Live. Thanks everybody for watching. Today, my special guest is Jamie Lieberman from Hashtag Legal. And Jamie and I actually just got to meet each other very recently through good old-fashioned networking in a group that we're both in. And I got to have a chance to do a one-on-one with Jamie recently, and I got to learn all about her awesome business and what she does and how she is a rock star, man. She's a rock star at branding herself. She's a rock star at being an owner and entrepreneur, and she's just killing it. And I'm just so impressed with the way that, as for her profession and as a lawyer, how she positions herself and how she makes herself so very, very accessible. So I really wanted to make sure I got her on the show to chat with everybody and hear all about her story, what she does, about Hashtag Legal, and how pretty much she makes everybody around her into a rock star, including herself. So thanks, Jamie, for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
That's like the best introduction ever.
It's like I'm kind of wrestling promo.
I'd like you to walk around and just say that everywhere I go.
I could do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thanks again for coming on. And really, it's like we just got to know each other very recently. However, I really felt like we've known each other for a while after talking to each other. So it was one of those things that when you start to talk to someone, you're like, man, they're just exactly like me, and they have all the same qualities and all that, and it's just like an instantaneous connection. So I'd love to have you share with everybody a bit about yourself, your background, and and then talk about Hashtag Legal.
Sure. So my name is Jamie Lieberman. I am an attorney, and I am the owner and founder of a law firm called Hashtag Legal. And we work with creators and entrepreneurs, online business owners, really any of the small businesses that tend to ignore legal is who I decided should be my customer. I started off in a very traditional legal practice. So I did complex commercial litigation for big law, pretty much like the black suits that you see on television.
Right.
Then I worked for the federal government. All of it was fairly soul crushing. And I left and started my own thing because I knew I loved the practice of law, but what I didn't love was that version of the practice of law. So I left to try to create my own version of it. It took a little while, a lot of stops and starts, and you sort of don't know what you're doing. And now, thank God, fast forward, we have Hashtag Legal, which is, I love how we practice law now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's just really cool because I was before we had actually gotten a chance to talk and do our one-to-one, I started looking on your site and looking at just what Hashtag Legal is about. And then, from the group that we're in too, where we met, just seeing how, you were jumping in on things. And I was like, wow, this is really cool because, I see a lot of lawyers. I talk to a lot of lawyers, but I think it's very cool how you guys position yourself in a way that, you're definitely working in a sense with a lot more creators, a lot more people who are out there on social, content creators from video, YouTubers, podcasters, all that. And I think that that's, especially when it comes to being a content creator and when you first start out, it's not something I don't feel like you really got to worry about, but as you begin to grow and you begin to have a following and things start coming in and, you're actually starting to do business with it, the legal aspect is something you really need to worry about. And I feel like what you guys do really well is that you put yourself out there to say, hey, listen, we understand you, content creator, and we're not like a typical law firm. I mean, am I on good track with that?
Yeah, I love it. We make it accessible and not scary. That's really, those are my buzzwords. Those are my keywords. I mean, I am a content creator. I was a blogger before the word influencer existed a very long time ago on a blog spot. Believe it or not, I'm now aging myself. I know.
I remember Blogspot.
And LiveJournal, if you remember that one.
Oh my God, LiveJournal. Wow, you may even be Friendster territory. Huh?
I was on Friendster.
Yes.
And MySpace, of course.
Yes, of course.
Yes. No, I'm so aging myself. But yeah, and I have a podcast now and I create content all the time. And so I understand what it feels like to be a content creator. And so because of that, it was sort of a natural marriage and being able to take my knowledge of legal, what's important in those businesses, and just to be able to present it in a way that just doesn't feel overwhelming. And so a lot of content creators, either They come to me because a friend's like, you should probably get that checked out, or something bad happens and we're in reactionary mood. And so my goal and why I'm jumping in groups and why I create so much content myself is to educate, so that maybe somebody will hear something and be like, oh, I should probably look into this before I'm having to react to something bad happening.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point too, because I think that once again, as you know, as a content creator, you know, you just start going, and you're not thinking about the other stuff. But as it turns into a business and things begin to, you know, you up the game a little bit, this is when, you know, you should really have that legal expert advice to have someone, you know, be involved in that sense, because you're now turning it into a business. So I think from that my question would be, I mean, what are those things that a content creator should really start thinking about when they should, you know, really be bringing someone like you in?
Yeah, so I'm going to list a whole bunch of things that are going to terrify some of the content creators that are
List them.
listening. So my initial thing that I'm going to say is do not freak out. So if you're not doing any of these things, you haven't thought of these things, one of the words I say you've not heard before, you don't need to panic about it. It's just information to know as you're navigating your own journey. Everybody's business is different. The majority of typical content creators are going to be thinking about business formation. So when you start making money, you may want to form an LLC or another type of entity. If you're entering into some kind of arrangement with another person, party, company, sponsored content, or hiring contractors, advertisements, you're selling services or products, you'll want a contract. Your intellectual property is really important for content creators. And that's just, you know, the content you're creating is protected by copyright law. And the name that you hold yourself out as, hashtag legal, for example, is your trademark. If you have a website and you're collecting data, say you have programmatic advertising or something on that website in order to make the money, because you should be making money if you're creating content, you may have to worry about privacy. And so these are some of the things that creators have to think about when they are entering into a business. And it'll really just depend, frankly, on how you're monetizing and how you're making your money and what your priorities are. There's no hard and fast rule. A lot of it has to do with your risk tolerance. And that's always my question to many of my clients who want me to make a decision for them. I'm like, well, how much risk are you willing to take? And some people will take it all. Like they're my bungee jumpers. And then I have other people who are like, I'm not even crossing the street if I don't have the correct signal. And that's different from person to person. And that should be a factor in the equation too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really solid advice, because yeah, I mean, for a lot of people, it's not something that they have, you know, ever been through before. I mean, you start off doing, you know, a podcast with your friend or, you know, by yourself as a hobby, and then before you know it, I mean, and if you're fortunate enough, like all of a sudden that hobby turns into something, or, you know, your YouTube channel, like, you know, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people saying, hey, well, I just started doing this on YouTube and, you know, doing screen records of me playing video games. And all of a sudden, like, things just start to happen. And then before you know it, you're like, wait a second, like, how did the thing I was doing for fun just turn into something that actually could make money, you know? And then you find yourself having to do something that you've never really done before, which is run a business, you know, because now you're taking money.
Yeah. And I also want to note you mentioned with a partner or a friend. And that is another really key critical part. If you are creating anything with anybody, sit down and have that conversation ahead of time, because you want to be able to, at some point, likely exit gracefully. And all partnerships, no matter what, end. They just do. And they end for lots of reasons. Many of them are great reasons to end. It's not a negative thing, but you have to plan for that in the beginning. So if you are not running solo, that is another thing to think about.
Yep, absolutely. And it is. And once again, for a lot of people who've never been through that, it's awkward, it's difficult. You've never had to do it before. And, you know, you don't know where to start, but this is where I think, you know, you can come in and you could really help. But even by doing this and having people listen back to this, you know, if it's something they've never thought about, or, you know, they've been kind of, you know, teetering on it, it's like you hear something like this, you hear someone like you talking about it, and it's like, okay, this really validates, you know, my line of thinking, and I should really do this. And, you know, and it's great, solid advice for you. If for anybody out there that's listening, you know, if you're going to take something to the next step, you really should, you know, take the time, formalize it. And if you have a partner who's probably your friend, which is cool, but you should have that conversation, because I know it seems weird now to be like, oh my God, we're making money, you know, but all of a sudden money comes in, and
Mhm.
money does change a lot of things
It
very fast.
changes everything. It
Yeah,
really does.
absolutely. So one of the things that I talked about at the top was I love the way you brand yourself and the way
Oh,
you put
thank
yourself out there. And I think you do a really great job. And I think that's one of the things too that I really like. I saw that and I'm like, wow, you know, Jamie absolutely gets it. Like she's a rock star. She's got the rock star mentality. And I talk a lot about this on the show, and having that, like what I call, you know, the rocket mindset, which is, you know, it's not necessarily about like what music you listen to. It's about having attitude, having confidence in yourself, having the attitude of saying, hey, I don't care. I'm going to try things. You know, I'm going to be me. I'm going to be authentic, and I'm going to put myself out there. And if this doesn't work, I'm going to try it another way. And I feel like, from what I've seen, how you put yourself out there, I feel like we have the same mentality on that. But I think it's very key. And I would love for you to talk a little bit more about that, about how you put yourself out there, how you sort of perceive yourself, and why you do it. Because I think a lot of professionals, as you said, it's, you know, the making the scary professional industry, but like making it not scary for people. But I think that's a really, really key statement that you said. So I'd love for you to talk a bit more about that.
Yeah. So my philosophy and my branding and everything sort of came from my experiences. So my first piece of advice is get experience. You can't just constantly be second guessing yourself. Like I've made a load of mistakes. I've had a lot of success too. That's
We all
awesome.
have.
They all balance. But you know, I came into this practice. One, I had a job. I had a career prior to law school, so I had background there. And then I went to law school, and then I did a really traditional law practice. And while it didn't necessarily fit me, it gave me this incredible foundation, particularly to know what I didn't want. And so what I saw being broken and what I saw as failings a lot in the legal industry. And so without that experience, I couldn't have created what I've created here, because I really just wanted to create something that made me feel good and made me feel
Right.
comfortable and made me feel right. Because I hear too many stories of people having awful experiences with lawyers where it's unethical behavior, or not even unethical, but it just feels wrong or gross.
Yeah.
And so that was really what I was pushing up against, was just that experience of like, it doesn't have to be that way. If you find a good lawyer, they're your partner for life, man. They will help you
Yeah.
grow your business. Like they can actually be a profit center for you versus a drain, how a lot of people view us. And so that's really where it came from. And the messaging and the way I talk about it really was just how I explained it to people. So it wasn't even anything I had necessarily like planned. But it came from a lot of people saying to me, you don't look like a lawyer. And that was like a huge compliment to me. And so,
I'd say that is a good compliment, because I mean we all have a perception of
yeah.
a certain practice, and especially the legal field. It's like, I think everybody's perception of lawyers, you know, what you see on TV a lot of times are, you know,
Mhm.
they're not all Better Call Sauls, you know.
Right, exactly. So that combined with just continuing to listen to my clients and hearing from them like what their pain points are. And it almost always started off as, I was scared to call you because I thought it would be too expensive. I was scared to call you because I thought that you wouldn't speak my language. I was
Mhm.
scared to call you because I thought you wouldn't be nice, or you'd make me feel shame because I don't have a client contract, but I've been in business for 10 years.
Right.
And each of them, when they would say to me, like, I just breathed a sigh of relief when we got off this call, made me realize, like, that's what's missing. That's what's missing in the marketplace. So let me tell people ahead of time before they even come talk to me that this is what you're going to get, but not just copy on my website, but like showing up. I speak at events regularly. I'm on social media. I go live. I show myself, like, and I don't make I'm goofy and like I'm myself and I'm not
Right. You're
shy.
authentic. That's
Yeah, it's just what you see is what you get. And one
right.
of the things I've also realized, and I think this is really true for most professionals, is you can't be everything to everybody. So as long as you sort of figure out that like the right people are kind of going to find me, the ones that don't fit or the ones that we don't end up working together, that's a blessing. That's a good thing, because we were never going to make it for whatever reason that is. And so once I really started listening to my clients, I was able, because that branding didn't start from the beginning. That's
Of
listening
course.
and talking and hearing, and then seeing why people resonate with me, why people hire us. That was most important to me. And so that is how it changed. And it changes. Like that website you saw, we're about to get a new one. So,
Well, there you go.
yeah. So, I mean, that stuff changes and it should change over time. I mean, you're certainly the branding expert, not me. But in my experience, my brand has changed a lot over the years. And my message has at its core stayed the same, but how I articulate that message has changed.
Yeah, and that's a really great point you said too about the change, because you can't stay static. You can't stay in one place. And yeah, so while your core message, your mission, like that's why you do what you do, that's always going to be your driving force and passion. But your brand is a living, breathing thing because it's you. It should be. It's an extension of you. Yep. And how you want to portray, and that's the content, how you feel, how you want to communicate, and we as people don't stay the same forever. Like we change, so your brand has to change with you. And I think that's a really important point to make, is that when you are branding yourself and you're putting yourself out there, like you should be ready to change. You should be ready to make those pivot, which is the word of 2020. But I mean, really, it's all about embracing change and wrapping your arms around it and making the best of it, and being able to change on the fly or do something a little different, and put yourself out there and have fun with it, because that's the only way you're going to eventually get better. And getting the feedback, listening is another key component. I mean, listening to people and what they say to you and the feedback they give, and you got to really embrace that kind of thing, because without that valuable feedback, I mean, that's core data that you can use for yourself. And it's all about having, once again, that right positive mental attitude, the PMA, and that rocket mindset to be able to put yourself out there and ultimately then get the people you want to work with. Like you as a business owner, I mean, there are certain types of people you don't want to work with. They just aren't a fit for you, right? I mean, and that's in every business.
Yeah.
And so, putting their message and your brand out there sort of casts that net and says, being very specific about who you want to work with and who you don't want to work with. Yeah. And that's a really key component. And I think people need to not be afraid of that type of thing.
Yeah.
But I also know it's new for a lot of folks as well, especially during now. Some people are really finding the need to have to do things that they didn't have to do before.
Right. Yeah, it's true. I think that the listening is the biggest key. And that's not like a survey I took. It's the fact that I talk to everybody. And I realize that I'm slightly different in that way. Like I will talk to anybody about anything. I actually don't even like to use the word networking. I like to just have conversations. I'll talk to anybody. You just never know who you're going to meet. I mean, I've met people in elevators talking about the weather, and we end up being like, oh my God, we know the same person. Or, it's just, I'll strike up a conversation with anybody. And so having that open mind to have that conversation, to get that feedback from them. And this then goes to your clients, right? If you're a service provider and you provide a specific service to clients, or even if you sell products, talking to your clients, like, what is that pain point? What is that need? Why me? Well, there's loads of lawyers out there, but why are you so drawn to me and Hashtag Legal and what we've created here? And I started to hear the same things over and over again, which was just me being me. But then I was able to distill that down into a message that I hopefully could reach more people with. And so you just have to be you. Don't try to be anybody else. I don't even know people, anytime I've ever worked with someone in marketing or talked to somebody, they're like, well, who are your competitors? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't care. I don't know. Nobody, everybody, it doesn't matter, because I have a very clear goal, a very clear mission. I do what I do. I put myself out there. I'm not worried what anyone else is saying. I think so much of that, we just over-research, overthink. Just be your awesome self. You clearly bring something exciting to the table. And so just figure out what that is, and then once you figure out what that is and how it resonates with your clients, then create your branding, because that's who you are and it'll show so clearly.
Yeah, that's totally spot on. I mean, absolutely. I mean, you know what? You should be coaching. You should absolutely be coaching.
Call me.
I mean, I see a webinar in the future, or actually, there are a bunch of videos you could be creating on how to brand yourself, especially in the that's a webinar for you. How to brand yourself in the at least in the legal sense. I think people would be falling all over themselves to hear you speak about that. But it is so true. You have to do these things, and there is a lot of head trash, and there's a lot of hesitation, and I know there's a lot of fear, and it's all very real. But it's one of those things that you really just got to push yourself to do. And once you start doing it, you will always naturally get better with it. You watch yourself, you hear yourself back, you create these graphics here and there. And you just, it's like riding a bike. You didn't know how to ride a bike at first, and then you learned how to do it, and then you're riding it. Then you stopped riding for a long time, and you got back on, and you started, cruising around town. It's really the same kind of a thing, So if you haven't done it for a while, like, that's fine. Like, just pick it back up again. And, there's plenty of tools, and there's a lot of technology, and there's a lot of help available for people who are willing to say, hey, you know what, you don't understand how to do this, like, willing to help. Let me show you a way to do it, or a way that fits in with your life and your lifestyle to make it comfortable for you. So I think that's a really great message that you just said there. So just moving back to some of the content creator stuff. What have you seen? What's been some of the stuff? I know we talked a little bit about like setting up for business and formations and things like that. But from that side of things, what are some of the trends you might be seeing on that side as to what you see coming your way, or some of the things that people really need to be looking out for more?
Yeah. So what I'm seeing now, particularly in the time of COVID, is lots of content creators are suddenly paying attention to ownership of their intellectual property. So that's really important, because I think in the past, we had a lot more options in monetization, particularly as creators, whether we're service providers or not, or we're creating content as just somebody who's, a blogger, an influencer, whatever word you want to use. All across the board. And I think now, because our worlds have sort of shrunk to where we live, and we certainly have the internet and we can connect in that way, but we're not traveling and we're not doing all those things we used to do. So people are really starting to focus on, like, what are the assets in my business? Like, where am I making my money from? And so we've seen a huge uptick of people being like, I want to get that trademark finally, or I want to really understand how to protect my copyright. The other thing is people who may have been in-person service providers, who are suddenly now online service providers, are having to shift their business model, which happens.
Right.
And they're realizing, wow, doing business online is different than doing business in person. So I got to shift all my legal documents. I may need to update my terms. I may need to create a contract. I may need to sort of change how I'm doing things. I may be creating courses now. I may be doing group coaching, but it's all virtual. I may run virtual events versus in-person events. And so that shift, we're seeing that. And then the third thing I'm seeing is a lot of strategy sessions. Lots of people just want to spend 30 minutes sort of talking to me because they're like, feeling at a crossroads. I feel like we're all at a crossroads, and all of us. It's just a strange time. And so I think there's some comfort in sort of sitting down and putting strategy together, particularly as the year comes to a close, and say to myself, like, what are my goals going to be for 2021? And where's my business going to go? And what do I need to do to really protect that business? And so those are sort of the three things that we've been seeing a lot. And partnerships. Let me add 4. New businesses, partnerships, new businesses and partnerships, people coming together to do work together. I'm seeing a ton of new business. I think I just read an article, and I wish I remembered what the source was. It was a good source. It wasn't just like I read it on Facebook.
Right.
That said that, like, new businesses and entrepreneurship is way up these days, because people are starting to create businesses. And so I am seeing a lot of new business and people wanting to do it right. I think it's a lot of people who either had corporate jobs and maybe either they lost their jobs or something else happened, or they had a moment of like, I don't want to do this anymore. And they're wanting to do it the correct way, not sort of figuring it out. So it's been cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. I actually think I saw Gary Vee post something recently on LinkedIn, or one of the many social accounts that he has. But he did post something as instead of looking at 2020 as a year everybody wants to forget, something along those lines. But look at it as 2020's year. 2020 has been a year in the boom of entrepreneurship and new businesses being started and people changing their lives. It was something, it's not quoted exactly, but that was along those lines. And I said, because I walk around and I say, oh my God, 2020, what a shit show of a year. But like, but I mean, when you do look at the positives of it, like things like that, like as dark as this year has been with everything that's gone on, there are still positives to take away from it, and I think that, to your point, is one of those things. Is many people I know have had life-changing decisions, and whether that's getting a new job or just changing their life in a different way, it felt like something like this, like what's going on, it took that shift to happen. Like it's knocked people. It's the catalyst that they needed to kind of kick themselves in the ass and make a change in their life that they needed to do. So it doesn't shock me at all when you say that's on the rise, and it's nice to hear that people want to do it right, because you should. The better you have it set up in the beginning,
Yes.
further down the line, it'll be much easier for you. Believe me.
Yes, it is far easier to
Yeah.
be proactive than reactive.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk a little bit too about the podcast that you do, because we've been talking about it, and you do brand yourself really well, but you are a content creator and you do have a podcast that you do. So why don't we talk about the podcast a little bit, and kind of what that's about and how long you've been doing it?
Yeah. So I just recorded my 136th
Whoa.
episode.
Whoa.
The name of the podcast is called the Fearless Business Podcast. And we talk all about the things in your business that you are afraid of, but shouldn't be. And that really was born out of my idea, like my practice, but I wanted to expand it. I just didn't want to have a legal podcast because boring. And so I do have a co-host who actually has a product-based business, which is kind of cool because I have a service-based business. And so it was like interesting how we have different perspectives. And we theme our months. So like this month, we're talking about productivity and operations and organization, which is like my Achilles heel. So it's been a running joke. And we do interviews, solo episodes sometimes. And we do something called Fearless Founders, where we interview a founder just sort of about their story, which I love. Those are some of my favorites because I love people's stories.
That's great. And so is that podcast is pretty much available anywhere you can get podcasts?
Yes. Anywhere you can get podcasts.
Excellent. That's very cool. So as we're kind of winding things down a little bit, I'd love to hear from your perspective, because I know you are very active on social and use a lot of different platforms. What are the ones that you enjoy most? What are the ones that you enjoy the most? And I guess the ones too, because not always the ones that you enjoy the most actually bring the best results, but you just enjoy using it. So I'd love to hear this answer.
So my number one's Instagram. I was a photographer many years ago. So Instagram has always been close to my heart. It's my favorite. I find I get most excited about going on Instagram. So I tend to focus most of my time on there. Facebook is got to be on Facebook. So it's unfortunately not as much my favorite. But we use it and it is frankly very effective. I do find Facebook groups in particular, that's how we met, to be very effective. And so I always pay attention if I'm tagged in a group, if a question comes up that I can lend some expertise for, I will certainly like shoot off a quick few line answer if I can. And so Facebook, I tend to stay more in groups than I do like scrolling a feed or trying to post or things like that. So Facebook is probably my second. I am on YouTube. That is my most underutilized social media channel. I need to use it more. I know that I am a little bit caught on time, but it's there. I created it. I got my 100 subscribers, so that was good. I got my little like URL and stuff. You can find me at Jamie Lieberman Rocks, which goes along with your awesome branding. So those are my three. I don't TikTok. It's not my jam, so I didn't even bother. And I know people love it. I don't have any real interest in it, so I was like, why am I going to do it? And LinkedIn, another underutilized one. I do use LinkedIn and I actually love it. I think it's a really great social network that not enough people use, but there's too many lawyers on there. So
there are a lot of lawyers on there, but I do think that once again, with your superpowers of being a rock star, I feel like you'll cut through a lot of the.
I try
a lot. And plus too, what I think is interesting point to bring up about like the different social medias and LinkedIn in particular though too is that, it's also too about, the people you are connected with already and engaging those people. Because if you're providing content for that group, the people that you're already connected with, like that's huge as it is. And I'm sure you have a lot of connections on LinkedIn. So, the more you up that, the more you're like engaging with those people. And, and you've got so much great content. There's a lot you could be reusing and repurposing on there. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
know.
And a quick note about TikTok too. I life hack. I got my daughter is actually my 6-year-old daughter is actually, she's been pushing me to do more TikTok, but she's actually like, Dad, we just take the videos that you've been doing and I'll just cut them and we'll put them up on TikTok. So she's been actually helping me take the videos, and she's been actually going through them and cutting out like little bits and blurbs to then reuse on TikTok. So
I know.
We'll see how it goes.
I have a client. She's unbelievable. She really focuses on Instagram, and she's actually done a whole thing about TikTok and what she's able to repurpose from Instagram onto TikTok, and it's really effective. It can be really effective, but I also feel like you just get to a point with time in the day, and you just have to choose.
You do have to choose, exactly. Well, that's hence why I'm like,
you do it.
I got my my daughter being like, "Hey, I'll do." I'm like,
Brilliant.
"Good. Well, you can do it. Here's the video. Go at it. Have fun."
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, well, this has been awesome. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all this awesome information. And hopefully everybody out there has learned a lot. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find us. Website is hashtag-legal.com. It's a new website's coming soon by the end of the month. And also at the end of the month, we are launching some courses, which I'm very excited about. We have created a different brand. It'll be underneath Hashtag Legal, called the Unbusiness School. And I'm very excited about it. I won't lie.
That's so punk rock.
And we are launching with 5 mini courses for like legal foundation. So trademark, copyright, business formation, contracts, terms and conditions, and privacy, with a whole bunch more to come. And so if you sign up for our mailing list, you actually will get a really cool discount. So I can certainly send you that link for that. And I'm really excited because I've been wanting to do that for a really long time. And I traveled so much pre-COVID. I couldn't find the time. And so I found the time, and I'm glad I created it, because there's a lot of people that come to us and they're like, I don't even know what I don't know. And it's just a great resource for people to have, even if you're not ready to hire a lawyer, or if you're just starting out. Right. So you can find us at hashtag-legal.com. We are #_legal on Instagram, Jamie Lieberman Rocks on YouTube, and Hashtag Legal LLC on Facebook.
Awesome. That's excellent. See,
Thanks.
Very accessible. One of the most accessible lawyers that I know, and also a lot of fun. So thank you once again, Jamie, for coming on. Really appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody for watching this today on the streams. And thank you for everybody who rewatches these on YouTube and also listens on the podcast. You can always rewatch this here on LinkedIn or Facebook, and you can find us on YouTube at the Rocket Growth Agency channel, or the Rocket Growth Agency podcast, which is available on Podbean and basically everywhere else that you listen to podcasts. So thank you guys for watching and listening to Rocket Live, and we'll see you guys soon. And always remember to be authentic, be yourself, and rock it.